The Hinterkaifeck Farm Murders, Secrets in the Walls. In the rolling farmland outside Weidhofen, Bavaria, there once stood a quiet, isolated homestead known as Hinterkaifeck. By day, it looked ordinary. A farmhouse, a barn, livestock shelters, and fields stretching toward dark forest. By night, it was completely alone, and in 1922, something terrible unfolded there. But to understand what happened, you first have to understand the family. The farm belonged to Andreas Gruber, a stern, controlling man in his early 60s. He ruled the household with an iron hand and had a reputation in the village for being difficult, intimidating, and deeply private. His wife, Kazilia Gruber, was quiet and withdrawn. Neighbors rarely heard her speak. Living with them was their adult daughter, Victoria Gabriel, who had returned to the farm after her husband died during the First World War. Victoria brought with her 2 children, 7-year-old Kazilia Gabriel and 2-year-old Joseph Gabriel. On paper, it looked like 3 generations simply trying to survive rural life after the war. In reality, the house was built on something much darker. Years earlier, authorities had intervened after discovering that Andreas had been involved in an inappropriate relationship with Victoria. Both were punished. The scandal spread quickly through surrounding villages. Even after the legal case ended, locals believed the situation never truly stopped. The tension inside the farmhouse was constant. To make matters worse, Joseph's paternity became a source of endless speculation. Victoria claimed her late husband was the father, but many villagers openly suspected Andreas himself. That rumor followed the family everywhere. Previous servants refused to stay long. One maid had abruptly quit, telling neighbors the farm felt wrong, that she heard footsteps in the attic and sensed someone watching. By 1922, Hinterkaifeck was socially isolated. People avoided the family avoided everyone, and then the signs began. Days before everything happened, Andreas noticed tracks in freshly fallen snow. They came from the nearby forest and led straight to the farm. There were no footprints leading away. At night he heard movement above the ceiling, in the attic space. Slow pacing, dragging sounds. A set of house keys disappeared. A newspaper appeared inside the home that no one in the family subscribed to. Andreas mentioned these things to neighbors. He even searched the property himself, walking through outbuildings and climbing into the attic, but he never contacted authorities. On Friday, March 31st, 1922, a new maid arrived, Maria Baumgartner. It was her very first day on the job. Her young daughter had accompanied her to the farm earlier, but left before evening. Maria stayed. That night, everything changed. By late evening, the family finishes their routine. Animals are settled. Lamps are lit. Maria likely retreats to her room, exhausted from travel and work. Upstairs, Joseph sleeps in his crib. At some point, Andreas heads toward the barn. Investigators later believed he was responding to something, perhaps a sound from the livestock, perhaps movement in the yard. Whatever it was, he went alone. He never came back. When Kazilia Gruber notices his absence, she follows. Then Victoria, then little Kazilia. Each person enters the barn separately, drawn forward by growing concern when the previous one fails to return. Inside, they are overcome one by one. The person responsible does not bring a weapon with them. They use one already on the farm, a mattock, a heavy agricultural tool normally used for breaking soil and roots. It is blunt, solid, and devastating at close range. That detail matters. It means the attacker knew the property. They knew where tools were stored. They did not panic. They did not rush. They simply reached for what was available. Andreas appears to have been first, then his wife, then Victoria, finally 7-year-old Kazilia. There are no signs they fought together. No evidence they entered as a group. Everything suggests a sequence. But it is what investigators found with little Kazilia that has haunted this case ever since. When her body was examined, they discovered clumps of her own hair clenched in her hand. Not loose strands, torn out hair. The implication was horrifying. It meant she had survived the initial attack. For hours, medical examiners believed she remained conscious for some time, injured and alone in the dark beside her family. At some point during that long night, she tore at her own hair, a child's instinctive response to shock, pain, and terror. This single detail transforms the scene from a sudden event into something far worse. It means the barn was not just a place of death, It was a place of waiting. Only after the barn falls silent does whoever is responsible move through the farmhouse. Maria is found where she lay in her bedroom. Upstairs, Josef is found in his crib. Then something deeply unsettling happens. The farm does not go quiet. Over the next several days, smoke rises from the chimney. Livestock are fed, food is prepared, tools are returned to their places, mail piles up, no one attends church. Young Kazilia does not appear at school, yet the property looks maintained. Someone is still there. On April 4th, neighbors finally grow concerned enough to investigate. They enter the barn first. There they find Andreas, Kazilia Gruber, Victoria, and young Kazilia together. Their positioning confirms they arrived separately. Inside the house, Maria is discovered in her bedroom. Upstairs, Josef is found in his crib. Authorities determine the family had been gone for several days, yet the farm continued operating after their deaths. That single detail changes everything. It means the person responsible did not flee. They stayed. They walked the same halls. They fed the animals. They lived inside the silence. Of all the people questioned afterward, one neighbor would never stop surfacing in the investigation. Lorenz Schlittenbauer. He lived nearby and knew Victoria well. He was among the first to enter the property and moved through it with confidence, as if he already knew where everything was. He even claimed Josef might have been his child. Some believed he had motive. Others believed he simply knew the farm. Nothing was ever proven. Other theories followed. Some focused on Victoria's personal relationships. Others pointed to post-war Germany itself, displaced men drifting quietly through rural areas. Supporters of this theory believe someone may have hidden in the attic, watching the family for days before acting. Some believed Andreas himself was the intended target, with the rest caught in the aftermath. But the most unsettling possibility remains the same. What if someone had already been living there, not visiting, living, hidden in the attic or outbuildings, observing routines, learning habits, waiting patiently? It would explain the attic sounds, the missing keys, the strange newspaper, the footprints that came from the forest but never returned. And it would explain why the farm continued to function. Whoever did this felt at home. In later decades, historians and modern analysts revisited the case. Unfortunately, early mishandling destroyed much of the original evidence. Curious villagers walked through the property. Items were moved. The buildings were eventually torn down. What remains are documents, testimonies, and timelines. Modern profilers note consistent traits: patience, familiarity with the property, and comfort remaining at the scene. Records have been digitized, statements retranslated, family trees mapped. Every analysis leads back to the same conclusion. This was personal, this was planned, and the person responsible knew Hinterkaifeck intimately. Today, Hinterkaifeck no longer exists. The buildings are gone, the land is quiet, but the story refuses to fade. It lives in the footprints that never led away, in the attic sounds that went unanswered, in the meals prepared after the family was gone, and in the chilling realization that for several days, someone shared that farm with silence, moving through familiar rooms, while the rest of the world carried on. And if someone truly lived among them before that night, how long had they really been watching?